Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are unpacking something that I think a lot of people feel they already know,
Oh, for sure.
even if they've never actually, touched the source material. We are looking at a story that essentially defined a whole modern genre of travel memoir.
Hmm.
It sparked thousands of conversations, probably millions of arguments, about what it actually means to change your life. We are diving into Elizabeth Gilbert's Eat, Pray, Love.
It is one of those cultural monoliths, isn't it?
Mm.
And because of the movie and all the parodies and just the sheer popularity, I think it's very easy to dismiss it as, woman eats pasta, finds herself.
Right.
But when you actually go back to the text, which is what we're doing today,
Yeah.
the level of detail and the specific internal architecture of the journey is really quite profound.
That's exactly why I wanted to do this. I feel like we need to strip away all that pop culture baggage and just look at the mission itself, because this wasn't just a vacation.
Not even
We're exploring one woman's really radical attempt to heal from a life that had completely, utterly shattered. It's a search for balance between two things that usually feel like they can't exist in the same room.
worldly pleasure and spiritual devotion.
Exactly.
That is the core conflict. Can you be a spiritual person and still, enjoy a really good glass of wine?
Yeah.
Can you be worldly but still grounded? And what's fascinating is that this search for balance isn't just a theme in the book. Gilbert actually builds it into the physical structure of the book itself.
I wanted to start there, actually, because this was something I totally missed the first time I heard about the book. The structure isn't random at all. It's based on the japa mala.
Right, the prayer beads. It's a very specific, very intentional choice.
So for anyone who isn't familiar, a japa mala is...
Yeah.
It's like a string of beads used in meditation.
Exactly. You see them in Hindu and Buddhist traditions. It's a way to keep your focus. If you picture a rosary, you're in the right ballpark, but the function is a bit different. You hold the necklace and you touch one bead for every repetition of a mantra.
So it's a physical anchor for your mind, so you don't just drift off thinking about, your grocery list or something.
Precisely. It keeps you grounded in the practice.
Mm-hmm.
And the traditional number of beads on a japa mala is always 108.
Why 108? Is there a specific reason for that number?
Oh, yeah, there's deep numerology there. In these Eastern philosophical circles, 108 is considered the most auspicious number. And the math is actually beautiful. It's a perfect three-digit multiple of 3.
Okay.
And if you take the components, 1 plus 0 plus 8, you get 9. And 9 is 3 threes,
So it's all about the number 3.
which represents supreme balance.
Yeah.
So Gilbert takes this ancient structure, and she applies it to her modern memoir. She divides her story into 108 tales, or beads,
Right.
and she splits them perfectly, evenly, among the 3 countries she visits. So you have Italy, India, and Indonesia. That gives us exactly 36 tales per section.
That feels incredibly rigid for a story about, emotional chaos.
But that's the whole point. She mentions that looking for truth isn't some spazzy free-for-all. If you are just wandering aimlessly, you're just lost.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual searching requires discipline. So the structure of the book is mimicking the discipline she's trying to cultivate in her own life. It's a container. When your life is spilling out all over the floor, you need a very strong container to hold it all together.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like, I'm going to fall apart, but I'm going to fall apart within these specific 36 chapters.
Precisely. And there's one more detail about the beads that's just crucial for the setup. The 109th bead.
Wait, I thought there were only 108.
There are 108 in the circle, but there's always one bead that hangs outside that balanced circle. It's called the guru bead or the meru bead.
Okay.
When you reach it during prayer, you're not supposed to count it or cross over it. You're supposed to pause and thank your teachers. So Gilbert uses this as her introduction and her acknowledgement section. She frames the entire narrative as this act of gratitude before the real work even begins.
Okay, so we have this roadmap. We've got 3 majors, as she calls them. Italy is the art of pleasure. India is the art of devotion. And then Indonesia is the art of balancing the two. But you can't just wake up one day and decide to do this. You have to be pushed.
Oh, you have to be shoved violently.
So let's talk about the shove. Section 1, the collapse. She called it the dark night of the soul. And it starts with a scene that I think is just seared into the memory of anyone who has read this book. It's November, it's 3 a.m, and she is on the bathroom floor.
This is the moment of absolute breaking. She calls the puddle of tears her lake inferior. It's such a visceral image. She's not just crying a little bit. She's sobbing so hard. She's creating a literal puddle of tears and snot on the cold tiles.
And the context here is so key. She's not homeless. She's not physically ill. She has, from the outside, everything.
No, and that's what makes the shame so sharp for her. She's in a big, beautiful house in the suburbs of New York, a house she just bought with her husband. She has a career. She has a spouse. She has the American Dream starter pack.
Everything on the outside looks successful.
Perfect. But on the inside, she is hiding in the bathroom, night after night, trying not to wake her husband up with the sound of her own life imploding.
And she's coming to a realization that I think a lot of people are terrified to even whisper to themselves. She says, I don't want to be married anymore.
And it spirals so much deeper than just the marriage. She realizes she doesn't want the house. She doesn't want the lifestyle. And maybe the most taboo realization of all for a woman in her early 30s, she realizes she does not want a baby.
This is where she brings in the giant squid analogy. When I first read this, I laughed out loud, but it's actually a really, really serious metric. Can you walk us through that?
It's brilliant. So she had a friend who was trying to get pregnant, and this friend was just ecstatic, secretly buying baby clothes, just radiating this specific frequency of pure joy. Gilbert looked at her and recognized that intensity. She realized she had only felt that specific level of excitement once recently. And it wasn't about a baby. It was when she got a magazine assignment to go to New Zealand to hunt for giant squids.
Giant squids.
Giant squids. She was obsessed. She wanted to be on that boat in the dark looking for the monster. And she realized the logic was simple. Until he feels excited about having a baby as I do about hunting for giant squids, I cannot have a baby.
That is such a clarifying way to make a decision. We often do things because we should or because it's the next logical step, but she's using giant squid energy as her baseline.
It's a survival mechanism, really. She was 31. The societal conveyor belt was pushing her toward the garden, the cozy stew bubbling on the stove, the nursery. But she describes herself not as a farm animal, but as a flamingo.
Yes. Tall, pink, awkward, trying to blend in with the sheep, but clearly not belonging.
And this total collapse of her identity leads to her first real interaction with God. And it's so important to note, she's not a religious person at this point. She's agnostic, maybe culturally, but not a practitioner.
So she's on the bathroom floor, completely desperate, and she just starts talking.
She describes it as a very informal, almost awkward introduction. She says, "Hello, God. How are you? I'm Liz."
Like she's introducing herself at a cocktail party. Hi, I don't think we've met. I'm Liz.
Exactly. Big fan of your work, but I'm in a bit of trouble here. She's begging for help. She just keeps repeating, "Please tell me what to do." And this is where the mystical element starts to creep in. But it's so subtle. She doesn't get a burning bush. She doesn't get a choir of angels.
She gets silence.
She gets silence, but it's not an empty silence. She calls it a pocket of silence. It's this sudden stillness in the middle of all the panic. And then she hears a voice. Not an external booming voice, but her own voice, speaking from a place of wisdom she didn't know she had.
And what does it say?
It gives her the most practical advice imaginable. It says, "Go back to bed, Liz."
I love that so much. It wasn't, leave your husband immediately or stay and fight for your marriage. It was just...
Go back to bed.
It's triage.
It's absolute triage. You need to rest for what's coming, because she knew the tempest was coming. That moment on the floor was the beginning of the conversation, not the conversion. The hard part was just starting.
And the hard part was the divorce. She calls it the divorce internment camp.
It sounds horrific. This was not a conscious uncoupling. This was legal battles, him refusing to sign settlements, financial ruin. She was just hemorrhaging money and emotional stability. And in the middle of this wreck, she meets David.
David. We have to talk about the David rebound.
Yeah.
Because I think in the movie version, this gets played as a romance. But in the book, it feels much more dangerous.
It's absolutely dangerous. This is a classic example of diving out of a burning building and grabbing the first floating piece of driftwood you see. David is described as a rebel poet yogi.
Right.
He's a street-smart New Yorker, a vegetarian, God's own sexy rookie shortstop. He's the polar opposite of her husband.
And the dynamic is just instant infatuation. They invent their own private language. It's the full falling in love montage.
But then it turns into addiction. And she uses that word specifically. The relationship becomes a cycle of these incredible highs and devastating lows. She describes herself as a cross between a golden retriever and a barnacle.
A golden retriever and a barnacle. That is That's a lot of neediness.
It's pure, unadulterated need.
Yeah.
She has no poker face.
Mm-hmm.
David actually tells her she has miniature golf face.
What does that even mean?
It means her emotions are just right there on the surface, all clunky and visible, like a windmill on a putt-putt course. You can see everything she's feeling. And as the relationship spirals, breaking up, getting back together, breaking up again, she realizes she has just traded one trap for another. She hasn't healed at all. She's just distracted herself.
There's this incredible story about her driving across Kansas with her friend Eva during the height of all this divorce stress. She's waiting for her husband to sign the papers, and it's just dragging on, and she feels completely powerless.
And Eva, who sounds like a very grounded friend, suggests a petition. Not a legal petition, but a spiritual one. They pull over, or maybe they're still driving, and they write this petition to the universe to end divorce. And they start collecting signatures from everyone they can possibly think of.
Who did they ask?
Everyone.
Yeah.
Gandhi, Bono, Jim Henson, her grandmother. They are shouting names out the window, signing this imaginary document with the spiritual weight of all these icons.
It sounds silly, but it's a way of reclaiming some agency, right? When you have none.
It's a ritual. When you can't do anything in the physical world, you have to work in the symbolic world. And the wild thing is, moments after they finish this imaginary petition, her phone rings. It's the lawyer.
And the husband signed.
The husband signed.
Wow. Okay, so that brings us to section 2, the prophecy and the plan. Because before she even fully committed to this year-long trip, she had a strange encounter in Bali that sort of set the coordinates for the whole journey.
This creates the framework. She had gone to Bali on a magazine assignment, again, the Flamingo, working as a writer, and she met a 9th-generation medicine man named Ketut Liar.
He sounds like a character out of a fable. She says he looks like Yoda.
Exactly. Toothless, elderly, very merry. And he reads her palm. Now, usually palm readings are vague. You will meet a tall, dark stranger.
Right.
But Ketut makes a prophecy that is just eerily specific. He predicts she will lose all her money.
Check. The divorce took care of that.
But he says she will get it all back immediately. He also predicts she will come back to Bali, live with him for a few months, and teach him English while he teaches her everything he knows about spiritual healing.
And he draws her a picture, right? This image seems really important to the whole theme of balance.
It's the logo of the book, essentially. He draws a figure with 4 legs, meaning grounded on the earth, but no head. Instead of a head, there's foliage, ferns, and flowers. And the face is located on the heart.
The face is on the heart.
The idea is to be grounded in the world, but listening through the heart, not the head. To think with the heart. That is the destination she is trying to reach.
So she has this prophecy. She's wrecked from the divorce. She's addicted to David. And then the losing money and getting it back part actually happens.
It does. The divorce wipes her out completely, but then she pitches this book idea, Eat, Pray, Love, to her publisher. And the advance they give her is the exact amount she needs to fund the year of travel. It's the replacement of the funds, just as he predicted.
So the plan is set. Rome for 4 months to study the art of pleasure.
Mm.
India for 4 months for devotion at an ashram. And Bali for 4 months to balance the two.
It's a very logical itinerary for a very emotional journey. You heal the body, then you heal the spirit, then you try to live in the world with both.
So let's jump into that first leg, section 3. Arrival in Rome. This is all about the pursuit of pleasure. And immediately she runs into a cultural wall. She realizes that as an American, she doesn't actually know how to enjoy herself.
This is where she introduces the concept of bel far niente.
The beauty of doing nothing.
Right. And she contrasts this so sharply with American culture. She notes that Americans are entertainment-seeking, but not pleasure-seeking.
What's the difference there? That sounds like splitting hairs.
It's a huge difference. Think about how we spend our weekends. We work hard all week, and then we expend more energy to be entertained. We go to movies, we go to theme parks, we doom scroll on our phones. We are constantly doing something to distract ourselves.
But we don't know how to just be.
We don't. We have ants in the pants, she calls it.
She mentions feeling like she needed to treat pleasure like a homework assignment. Like, okay, it is 2:00 p.m. I am now going to maximize my pleasure efficiency.
Which is the most American way to approach relaxation possible. It's her Puritan and Swedish background coming through. She feels guilty if she isn't productive. But bel far niente isn't laziness. It's a talent. It's an art form of enjoying the moment without the need to validate your existence through work.
And a huge part of her pleasure journey is the language itself. She is completely obsessed with Italian.
It's a love affair. It
Yeah.
really is. She's not learning it for business. She's not learning it to read a contract. She says she's learning it because it deserves to be spoken. It's pure aesthetic appreciation.
And she gives us this fascinating little history lesson on why Italian is so beautiful. I had no idea about this, that the language was essentially handpicked.
It's a great story. So Italy wasn't always a unified country. It was a collection of city-states, all with different dialects. When they moved toward unification and needed a national language, a group of intellectuals actually sat down to choose one.
And they didn't pick the dialect of the bankers or the military?
No. They picked the Florentine dialect, Dante's dialect, specifically because it was the most beautiful.
They chose the language of the poets?
Exactly. The dolce stil nuovo, the sweet new style. Italian was literally designed to express emotion and poetry. That's why everything sounds so dramatic and romantic to our ears. It was engineered to break your heart.
So she just immerses herself in this. She finds these tandem exchange partners to practice with. There's Giovanni and Dario, the twins.
The contrast there is hilarious. Giovanni is the shy, serious one. And he has this great line about her humor. She tries to be ironic in Italian, which is very hard to do in a second language. And he says, "You are the lightning, and I am the thunder."
Meaning he's always a few seconds behind the joke.
Exactly. He gets it, but only after the storm has already passed.
And then there's the food. You cannot talk about this section without the food. She declares a double major in speaking and eating.
And she adopts a no-guilt policy. This is her rebellion against that ants-in-the-pants mentality.
Yeah.
She goes to Il Gelato di San Crispino.
The honey and hazelnut gelato.
And cinnamon ginger. She's tasting things she deprived herself of for years. But the scene that really stands out to me, the real pivot point of this whole section, is the solo lunch. It's such a small moment, but it represents the entire shift in her mindset.
Walk us through that.
She goes to a market and buys some asparagus, goat cheese, and salmon. She takes it back to her apartment. Now, usually if you're alone in a foreign apartment, you might just, eat out of the container standing over the sink.
Or while reading a book or watching TV. Anything to distract yourself from the fact that you're eating alone.
Right. But she doesn't do that. She arranges it beautifully on a plate. She pours a glass of wine, and she sits in a sunbeam on the floor and just eats. No book, no phone, no distraction, just the sensation of the sun on her skin and the taste of the asparagus.
And that's when the guilt hits her.
It crashes in. She hears her ex-husband's voice in her head asking, "So this is what you gave up everything for, a few stalks of asparagus?"
That is such a brutal question. You blew up our marriage for a vegetable.
But her answer is the breakthrough. She realizes, yes. It validates that peace and simple pleasure are worth blowing up a life that wasn't working. It's the moment she stops apologizing for saving herself.
Before we move on, we have to talk about Luca Spaghetti.
We absolutely have to.
First of all, his name is Luca Spaghetti.
Which even the Italians find hilarious. It's like being named Bob Hamburger.
He's a tax accountant, but he calls himself an artist because the tax laws are so contradictory that doing taxes requires, jazz-like improvisation.
He's her guide to the Roman mindset. But he also introduces her to the rougher side of Roman cuisine, the lamb intestines.
Oh, gosh. I have a weak stomach for this part.
Yeah, Romans eat the fifth quarter, all the parts the rich people didn't want. Luca loves these intestines. Gilbert tries them, trying to be a good traveler, but she looks down and realizes they look exactly like tapeworms.
And that's a hard pass.
A very hard pass.
Mm-hmm.
But Luca has his own critiques. He critiques American food. He calls it Amtrak pizza.
Which is a devastatingly accurate burn. It implies it's just rubbery and microwaved and sad.
Exactly.
So on the surface, Rome is all gelato and sunbeams and funny tax accountants. But this is where the book gets really real. Because Section 4. The Shadows reminds us that you bring your demons with you when you travel. You can't just fly away from depression.
No, and in fact, usually when you stop moving, when you stop the busy work, that's when the demons finally catch up. Rome slowed her down enough for the sadness to find her again. And she personifies her mental health struggles in this really powerful way. She calls them Pinkerton detectives.
I found this metaphor so striking. Can you explain who the Pinkertons were for context?
Sure. The Pinkertons were a private security guard and detective agency back in the 19th and early 20th centuries. They were often hired as strikebreakers or to hunt down outlaws. They were relentless, sometimes brutal. They were hired muscle.
So she imagines her depression and her loneliness as these hired goons.
Exactly. They flank her, they kick down the door of her mind, they frisk her for any joy she might be hiding, they interrogate her about all her life choices. It's not just, I feel sad today, it's, I am being hunted by these forces that want to strip me of everything. It turns depression from a passive state into an active, violent attack.
She also talks very openly about medication. She calls it vitamin P.
And this is a really nuanced discussion. She had a lot of hesitation about taking antidepressants. She comes from a hard-working, pull-yourself-up-by-your-bootstraps kind of family. The idea of needing a pill to get through the day felt like a failure to her. But she acknowledges that they saved her life during the divorce. They built a bridge over the abyss so she could walk across.
But then, in Rome, she decides to stop taking them.
She feels that taking antidepressants in a place of such incredible sensory beauty just feels wrong. She wants to feel the beauty naturally. She wants to know she can stand on her own 2 feet, but it's risky. And when she spirals, when the Pinkertons show up, she uses this thing called the notebook technique.
This is one of the most practical tools in the book. I've actually tried this since reading it. It sounds so simple, but it's really hard to do.
How does she describe it?
She opens a notebook and she writes, "I need your help." That's the desperate, frightened flamingo part of her writing. And then she answers herself. But she writes the answer from a completely different voice.
The voice of unconditional love. The same voice she heard on the bathroom floor.
Yes. And the dialogue is so moving. The frightened self says, "I'm lonely, I'm scared, I don't know if I should take the meds." And the wise voice writes back, "I am here. I will love you if you take the meds. I will love you if you don't. I will never leave you."
It's just total acceptance. She connects this to a mirror moment she had back in New York. She caught her reflection in a security mirror, you know, those big fisheye mirrors in shops.
Right.
And she saw this woman's face and instinctively smiled, thinking, oh, I know her. She looks nice. And then she realized, oh, that's me.
That is such a profound goal, to recognize yourself as a friend, to look in the mirror and not see a project to be fixed, but a friend to be greeted.
It really is. And part of befriending herself involves setting some serious boundaries. Specifically, the man fast.
The celibate.
She decides to remain celibate for the entire year. And she explains exactly why. It's not about religious purity or anything like that. It's about what she calls the permeable membrane.
That phrase really stuck with me, permeable membrane. Can we unpack that?
Imagine a chameleon sitting on a red rock. It turns red. And it sits on a green leaf. It turns green. It's no color of its own. It just reflects whatever it's touching. Gilbert realized she was a chameleon in relationships.
She became whatever the guy wanted her to be.
Totally. If the guy was a vegetarian, suddenly she was a vegetarian. If he liked indie rock, she became an expert on indie rock. She absorbed their finances, their anxieties, their dreams. She says she used men as a scratching post for her own unfulfilled yearnings. She didn't know where she ended, and they began.
So the celibacy isn't a punishment. It's a way to solidify that membrane, to turn from a permeable screen into a solid wall, to learn how to be lonely without immediately reaching for someone else to fix it.
Even when her friend Sophie jokes that she'll kiss Liz if she gets too desperate.
Let's talk about those connections in Section 5. Because even though she's celibate and dealing with loneliness, she makes these incredible friends.
She uses the old-school letter of introduction method, just emailing friends of friends. That's how she meets Sophie, the Swedish friend we just mentioned.
Sophie is great. She left a banking job to learn Italian, and her family thinks she's completely crazy for it.
They bond over this shared pursuit of beauty over practicality. And so he gives us another great Italian phrase, un'amica stretta. Literally a tight friend.
Like tight clothes.
Exactly, a friend that fits you perfectly.
Then there's Maria and Giulio, the American-Italian couple. They give us a hilarious insight into language and anger.
The wall of curses. So Maria's American, Giulio's Italian. They get into a big fight, and Maria writes these angry curses all over their wall in Italian.
Which seems pretty aggressive.
You'd think. But Giulio isn't mad about the vandalism. He's analytical about the linguistics of it. He tells Liz that the fact that she wrote the curses in Italian proves she's repressed.
Wait, how does he figure that?
He argues that if she were truly uncontrollably angry, she would have used English, her native tongue. The fact that she took the time to conjugate Italian verbs means she was thinking. She was filtering her rage through grammar.
That is such a funny, specific cultural insight. You're not actually mad enough because your grammar is too good.
Exactly right.
And finally, we have to mention the failure of yoga in Rome.
A complete and total failure.
She brings the mat. She has the best intentions.
But Rome and yoga do not mix. She realizes that in Rome, the spiritual practice is the pleasure. You don't do downward dog, you eat a perfect pastry. You walk, you enjoy. The discipline of yoga is for the next bead on the necklace for India. The mat stays rolled up in the corner, gathering dust.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the first third of her journey, we have really seen the transformation from the bathroom floor to the sunbeam with the asparagus.
It's a movement from desperation to stabilization. She hasn't found enlightenment yet. She certainly hasn't found the balance of Indonesia. But she has learned to befriend herself. She has learned that pleasure isn't a sin. It's a valid way of healing your nervous system.
And she's prepared herself for the rigor that's coming, because India is not going to be about gelato.
No. India is the heat. It's the fire. Rome was the soothing balm. India is the surgery.
So what does this all mean for us? We always like to leave you with something to chew on, and I think it comes back to that concept you mentioned earlier, the permeable membrane.
I agree. That is the provocative thought to leave with today.
Ask yourself, do you lose yourself in others? When you are in a relationship or even a deep friendship, do you take on their shape? Do you become the chameleon on the rock?
And if the answer is yes, what would it look like to stand alone? What would it take to be an amica strata tight friend to yourself first before you offer that to anyone else? It's a scary prospect because it means you have to deal with your own Pinkerton detectives.
But as Gilbert shows us, it's the only way to actually get your life back.
That is a big question, but maybe the most important one. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the first leg of Eat, Pray, Love.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.